Welcome to episode number 125, and this is a book club conversation about the book Contagious. I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more products and services in the aviation world.
Absolutely.
If you're watching this, I'm the guy on the left.
Right. I guess they probably know that, but that's okay. Anyway, this is a picture of John and me and Mark and Carolyn Leeper, who are some of our very favorite people to do trade shows with. And this was at the Flight School Association North America in
San Diego.
Fabulous San Diego. And if you would like us to support your trade show, wherever it might be, we don't just go to San Diego, although that's one of our favorite places. We also really like Las Vegas. But yeah, we do cover trade shows for companies and also for ourselves. So if you're planning on going to trade shows this summer and need a little extra assistance, we are certainly available for that. So you said our mission is, which it is.
I said that once.
Yes, you did. Say it again.
To help all you folks out there sell more products and services.
Right, in the aviation industry. And I wanted to add something so that they have more money to spend on R&D, building better products, building better services, or providing better services, and taking better care of their people, whether that be customers or employees and things like that. And I will tell you why we added this by the time we get done with this episode.
Good.
Right? Okay, cool. So, first of all, first impressions, what did you think?
Rehash,
okay. This is one of those things that reminds me of the fact that there are only 7 basic stories in the world, right? And this comes from a book by Christopher Booker, who wrote about drama, and he said there are really only 7 stories in the world. It's all just a matter of how well you tell the story. And I think Jeremy Cox from our group summed this up really, really well in our Facebook private group when he said, this book could have been 2 pages and it would have been fine. But it did have a lot of stuff. And I think Stephen Covey, I used to work for Franklin Covey, and one of the things that he said is there is not a person or a book on the planet that you cannot learn something from. If you might just have to exercise a little more creativity in order to make that happen, right?
Well, I'm not sure that I learned anything from the book, but after having gone through it, it sparked an idea I ran by you for us.
Exactly, which is great. But I think Jeremy was absolutely right that, the main gist of the book could have been summed up in 2 pages, and, he didn't really like the book because of that. And I totally understand and agree to a certain extent. But there was a lot in the book that I think can be applied. It's just we have to work a little bit harder to apply it to, especially to the aviation industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, one of the first bookmarks I put in this book was the thing about social currency. And the example that the author gave, this is Jonah Berger, was speakeasies. There's a speakeasy in the back of a hot dog joint. And our first experience with speakeasies came, I think, this Christmas. Is that right? We were in Omaha for Christmas with family, and your daughter mentioned...
There's a bookstore. Well,
yeah,
it's called a bookstore.
Exactly. And this was the Wicked Rabbit in Omaha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you never would know it was there. It's in the back of a bookstore, and for some reason, Michelle knows about all these things. It's the coolest thing. Wherever we go, she knows of all the speakeasies. And, these are things that don't advertise, but all the cool kids know where they are, right?
Yeah, then they're typically made up a la the 40s, the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you walk into this thing, looks like a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
You pay the fee or whatever, get the password, and the bookshelf is moved aside and you walk through.
Right, exactly. The example in the book that they gave was there's a phone booth. Nobody has phone booths anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you dial a certain number in the phone booth, and then they ask you if you have a reservation. And if you do, of course, there's a secret compartment in the back of the...
On the back of the phone booth slides one way or the other, and you walk through.
Exactly, which is really cool. So, speakeasies, of course, are from the 20s during Prohibition when it used to be illegal to serve alcohol. So, of course, it was necessary then, and now they just do it because it's cool.
Right.
Right? Okay, so social currency, what does this have to do with social currency? The only way that these things are advertised is because people know about them and they tell each other about them. So then
Right.
they tell their friends about it because it's a secret and it's cool, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so how could you use this in the aviation industry?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
I think it would be really cool, and maybe not all the time because it is uh, not exactly the world's most practical idea, and aviation does have to be a little more practical, being kind of business to business. But there are events that you could have a speakeasy type of a party during NBAA. You could have a speakeasy in the back of your booth, where some of these booths that have the meeting rooms and other kinds of things, you make an appointment, you could very easily put some kind of a code or a treasure hunt or a password or some other really cool device to make that a more interesting experience for your best customers or for people that you really want to have access to this. So it's kind of an exclusive, cool thing, right?
Hmm.
And there's, most of the conventions that we have are in really cool locations where there may be a speakeasy. So I'm sure there's a ton of them in Las Vegas. There's a ton of them in Orlando. So, those are things you could do,
Hmm.
right?
In fact, Honda does. Well, the last one we went to, Honda had that sort of thing almost, where they had an upstairs to their booth,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to have personal invitation to get through the door.
Exactly. So, you can think about this in terms of how can you make your experience, especially during events, more exclusive and more cool, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Cool. So, social currency, good thing. Triggers. The example in the book that they gave was Walt Disney World versus Honey Nut Cheerios, right? Okay. This has as little to do with aviation as you can possibly imagine.
No, but it's all about the idea of triggers and
Right.
what makes people think of things.
Exactly. So if you count the number of mentions that Walt Disney World has versus the number of mentions that Honey Nut Cheerios had on Twitter, at some points during the week and during the year, Honey Nut Cheerios far exceeds Walt Disney World, which is crazy because who cares about Honey Nut Cheerios? It's just not that cool. But given the triggers of breakfast every morning, breakfast with your kids, those kinds of things, Honey Nut Cheerios has more instances in which you are likely to be talking about it.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And yeah, we're not eating sugar this month, you can tell. We're craving things. But anyway, so how can you use this in the aviation industry? You can think about what do your customers do every single stinking day, right? This is why coffee mugs are so popular as as marketing novelties, because a coffee mug with your logo on it, especially if it is the coolest coffee mug they own, is something that they will use every day,
Yes.
right? The luggage tags, I've seen companies that do really, really cool luggage tags. Now, the key here is that you have to give them something that is cooler than anything else that they own in the category of a thing that they use every day. So that's the hard part, right? Flight bags, the USB drives went back when people used to use USB drives every day. That's less often now. I think those have been pretty overdone. Pens, things like that. So, think about your customer. What in particular is it that is about their routine where you can insert yourself or your logo or your experience into their daily routine, right?
Yep, and that's what I got an idea on out of the book for us, so we're going to talk about that and see where it goes.
Exactly, which is a really good idea. So stay tuned for that. All right, emotion. The example that they used in the book was a scientist who figured out how to basically capture or photograph the process of a cough, and which is really interesting if you're in epidemiology or contagious diseases and,
Not so much if you're in aviation.
Right. Well, maybe it should be more interesting to us. Anyway, the thing is, it's a very, very scientific bit of information and a very, very scientific discovery that is very important to a very small number of people, but it's not all that emotionally gripping, right?
Exactly.
Okay. But just about anything you can make emotionally gripping if you take it far enough. And this is something that I think happens a lot in aviation is you've got product engineers who are like, we made this faster and cooler and neater, and it's a half second faster to conduct this operation, or it is our instrument is some increment more sensitive than the competing instrument, those kinds of things. So the question really becomes, so what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask the question, so what, from the customer's perspective, and this reminds me of when I was a kid, my brother and my dad were both systems analysts, right? Okay, or at least my brother was a computer science, computer science student, and my dad was a systems engineer. And I was kind of technical, kind of nerdy, but I was nowhere near the way those two were. And so every time they would have a conversation, I would just run screaming from the room because it was just so boring, right? So if you really want to capture the interest of your customers and they think that what you do is so boring, right? If you get that, if you see people's eyes glazing over, what you need to do is think of it from their perspective and ask the question, so what, right? And even if the answer seems obvious to you, like safety, I really liked the conversation we had with the Kings at the Visana conference.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever use the term safety because it just turns people off. They think it's too general. It doesn't make any sense. You instead want to talk about how you can prevent this specific type of accident or the specific type of incident and how you can make it more likely that all of your people are going to go home at the end of every day.
In fact, there was a thing out on Aviation e-brief said safety is not a strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to teach all the things it takes so that you become safe.
Exactly. So you want to take it down to the level of so what, so that people care. This is why you should do this particular safety procedure, not just say, well, it's because of safety. You have to think more specifically, so what? If your product saves people time, that's great, but who cares if it saves people time? The reason you care is because it helps your people get home faster and spend more time with their kids. People do care about that.
Yep.
Right? You want to say, when you think about our mission, why do we care that we want people to sell more aviation products and services? So that aviation companies can become more successful and can spend more money on R&D, on services, and on taking better care of their people.
Yes.
And that we care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something we can get behind and really feel some emotion about, right?
True.
Okay. Cool. All right. Public. Do you remember this one? This is an argument between Steve Jobs and Ken Segall about which direction should the Apple be on the Apple notebook. Should it be right side up or should it be upside down? And if you're thinking from, and I do this every single time I take my laptop out of the bag, I have to think about, is the logo right side up or upside down? Which way do I open this thing? Which side of this does open? And Ken Segall's argument was the whole unboxing experience of any Apple product is that the most important person in the world is the Apple customer. So when you take it out of your bag, it's supposed to have the logo on the right side up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you open it, that's what everybody else sees. So should it be right side up or upside down? And Steve Jobs' argument was, we want everybody who's sitting in a coffee shop to see the Apple logo right side up. So in this case, it was a hard-fought battle between the two of them because they do take their customer experience very seriously, but they also take their public branding very seriously. And in this case, the public branding won, right?
Well, of course, because once the customer has purchased, you can put them back behind public.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. So you do have a minor unboxing every day when you take it out of your bag,
Right.
at the Starbucks. But also you want everybody walking by at the Starbucks to see, this is an Apple computer and you want that to be right side up. So how do you use this as an aviation company? You want to think about your customers' interactions with other people. How will they know that you are one of their folks? For us, It's this lapel pin, right?
Well, at the least.
Yeah, exactly. It's also, if you walk by the cubicle of somebody who's one of our customers, there's going to be a whole bookshelf of stuff from us. ABCI books, ABCI binders. They're going to have an ABCI calendar on their wall.
And depending on the customer, a coffee cup with
Exactly.
an ABCI on it.
Right. So, if someone is one of our customers, we want them to look like one of our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And we want those to be the smartest people in the aviation industry so that people will say, wow, that guy's really sharp. Maybe some of that came from ABCI. That's what we're hoping anyway. So think about the public in terms of your customers. You've got a bunch of brand ambassadors out there. How can you help them represent you better?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. Cool. Next.
And this is pretty cool here.
Did you see this?
No, I didn't go see it, but I just listened to it and I said, well, of course.
Exactly.
That's the way my granddad did it, but no, I didn't think about it.
Well, your granddad didn't have a microwave, did he?
No, but he didn't need one.
Okay.
Just put it in the oven for a little bit.
Okay. Well, I guess that would work too.
My grandma did that. She put all that stuff in the oven
Mm-hmm.
and pulled it out, and then granddad'd go whack and pop it open, and there was very little silk.
Exactly. No, I saw this video, and this is actually Ken Craig. He's an 86-year-old guy who, happened to be having dinner at his daughter's house, and she was wrestling with the corn, as most people do, trying to get all that stuff, all that corn silk off of corn cob so that, you could do corn on the cob. And he said, why are you doing that? Let me show you an easier way. And she pulled out probably her iPhone and started taking video. And he described it and did a 2-minute video and ended up with 685,000 views as of today. An unbelievable number of views, and people are obviously sharing this with each other. And I just wanted to run out to the grocery store and buy a bunch of corn and try this, because this is so cool the way he does this. He put the corn in the microwave for 4 minutes, and then he cut off the bottom of it, and then just went zoop, and the corn husks and the corn silk just popped right off, and it was amazing. He did those 2 ears of corn in less than 2 minutes, and that includes the explanation, without, picking individual strands. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so what does this have to do with the rest of us? Once again, you want to think about something that is useful that your customers are going to share with everybody they know. So, see, this is a video that I would share with everybody that has ever made dinner, that I've ever made dinner with and had this problem with. So if you can make something that is very, very useful, people love to share something that's useful and saving each other time and looking smart in the process, right?
Of course.
So if you can create a tip sheet or a buyer's guide or something that says, here's a better way to do this particular thing that your customers want to do, and whether that's chartering an airplane, or whether that is doing maintenance, or scheduling something, getting ADS-B taken care of. There's a ton of things that aviation people need to do.
It probably won't happen in 2 minutes, but at least if you can
you can't
make it easy for them.
Explain that in 2 minutes. But anything that you can explain fairly simply and easily in a 1-page document, or a 5-minute or less video, do it, because people are a lot more likely to share that, and you can always put your branding in that, even if it's not specifically about a product or service that you sell, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Stories. Once again, there are 7 stories, right? In the world. It's just a matter of how well you tell them. Mm-hmm. And this one, of course, everybody knows this story.
Of course.
The Trojan horse. So...
in fact, they talk about Trojan horses today, and they're talking about viruses.
Yeah, exactly.
Same story, though.
Same story. And everybody knows what they're talking about. They're talking about something that is hidden inside something else. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows that becomes kind of a shorthand for something else. But if you can tell a great story, and, the examples that they use in the book are like the Land's End jacket, where the guy had the broken zipper on his jacket, took it, Land's End said, don't bother getting it repaired, let me just send you a new one, and we'll get it there in time for your trip. There are some really great stories about one of our clients, Special Services Corporation. Bill Lee, he's a sales training expert with the Lee Resources Incorporated. said, and he flies a small plane and to go visit clients and do his thing. But he says there have been many times when he's taken his plane, just taxied over to SSC. He's on the same airfield, and they have been able to make it so that he's able to keep his schedule, even if there's something slightly uncomfortable or wrong with his airplane, and they're able to fix it and keep him on schedule. And they sometimes are able to put things aside and just take care of his problem. And so those stories are the kinds of things that are so unusual nowadays. They don't make you go to the back of the line and schedule and do all these things. There's another story. Lynn Jordan said her family was vacationing in St. Martin during Hurricane Irene, and regular flights were stranding passengers in the airport. And so everybody that was at the resort that they were at was stranded and was complaining and everything else. They had no problem. They just got on the plane and left because they were flying private, and
Right.
they can do the scheduling, they can fly around, they can do any number of things. They can take advantage of that flexibility. And so Irene Jordan, whenever she talks to people, I'm sure, about weather,
And
this
it's
story comes up.
Oh, yeah.
About this fabulous vacation that they had where they were able to enjoy it and not have the anxiety and the inconvenience that everybody else was having on the island, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So this is the summary for Jeremy's benefit. This is all you need to know. Exactly. So he puts it into a nice little acronym: STEPS, social currency, triggers, emotion, public, practical value, and stories. And, it's a pretty neat way of summarizing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy has a point that it does take a little bit of effort to apply some of these things. And, there's nothing really innovative or new here, but I think put together it's kind of a useful exercise. What do you think?
Well, it's a review.
It's a review. Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this. And if you would like to do any of the things that we talked about today, such as, for example, like putting a tip sheet together or a buyer's guide or telling your story in a better way, those are the kinds of things that we specialize in, right?
Of course.
For aviation companies, and applying some of the best thinking and the best technology from other fields of marketing to the aviation industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we are good at, and that's what we really enjoy doing. So if you'd like to talk about how some of this could apply to you and how you could make your marketing better by making it more contagious, schedule 30 minutes with us, and we'd be happy to talk with you about what you're doing and what we could do maybe differently, better, cooler, neater, or get more out of the effort that you're already putting in, right?
Right.
All right. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good day.